Episode 11 just dropped and there's only one more episode to go for this season. Sisters War is this week's episode title, and as it implies, things get pretty messy, and I don't mean it in a bad way. This episode is pretty relatable and is depicted quite realistically when presenting how people would act or respond when put into this kind of situation. There's quite a lot to dissect in episode 11, so let's get to it. Raiha and Futaro went shopping for supplies for the school trip, where apparently he was completely oblivious that the Nakano's birthdays had just passed and kind of felt obligated to get a present for them, albeit a belated one. Unbeknownst to the latter, Raiha also made plans to invite Itsuki to go shopping too. Yotsuba also tagged along. I enjoyed this scene a lot because Raiha provided a bit of levity and breather for us the viewers despite the ongoing pressure of Miku, Nino and Ichika's battle for Futaro. The episode opens up with a light-hearted scene that gives us time to slowly get into what's about to come. Raiha spills the beans big time, as typical younger siblings would, prompting Futaro to tell Yotsuba about Rena, the girl from the photo. Raiha flat out says that she was Futaro's first love, which unsurprisingly shocks Yotsuba. Then it cuts to when everyone was on the train to Kyoto with the Nakanos playing cards. Miku prepared some lunch for Futaro beforehand using her workplace's kitchen, and Yotsuba continues to support her. Ichika ups the stakes by stating the victor of the next card game can make the losers do anything they want. Once they arrived, they decided to follow Futaro's group to the Fushimi Inari Shrine. During my last visit to Japan, I wanted to go there mostly because of the Torii Gates, but didn't get the chance to because of my condensed schedule. We get a nice chill scene of the girls walking through the gates, taking pictures and conversing, etc. It gives you the feeling of how simple things used to be between them. They reached the halfway point and it was almost lunchtime, and Miku started feeling discouraged as she wanted Futaro to try her cooking for lunch. Yotsuba invokes the win card she won from the card game earlier, no pun intended, so that Miku and Yotsuba take the right route to the shrine while the other three take the left, and one group is bound to bump into Futaro, assuming he's gone ahead to the shrine. This was a pretty good plan on Yotsuba's part, but the only downside being that Miku is the weakest of the five when it comes to stamina, but Yotsuba's aid can kinda make up for that. When Nino and Itsuki stopped for the bathroom, Ichika decided to go on ahead in order to outpace the other four and reach the top first. She also then came to the conclusion that she has to dress up as Miku once again in order to prevent Miku's plan. In my review for episode 9, when she first did this, I thought it wasn't too big of a deal, but now it's kind of crossing the line and it's quite devious of Ichika to, in a way, sabotage another's relationship with someone, not to mention that Miku was her own sister. Turns out Futaro wasn't at the shrine yet, but Miku and Yotsuba did reach the top and caught Ichika red-handed in her disguise. Miku seemed confused, but Yotsuba was clearly upset knowing what Ichika was scheming, and as she was about to scold her for it, Futaro just happened to reach the peak from Yotsuba and Miku's side and had accidentally heard Yotsuba stating out loud about Miku's attempted confession to Futaro. Miku ran off in distress, passing Itsuki and Nino. Nino too noticed the props Ichika was hiding and was understandably pretty disgusted at the notion. Ichika retorts with saying how Nino stated back when they were conversing in the hot springs that Nino would trample anyone who gets in her way. While admitting to saying so, Nino stated that she at the very least would make sure her methods would not compromise her bonds between her sisters. And I could definitely believe Nino means that because, as we've seen throughout season 1 and 2, Nino really cares for her sisters no matter how much they fight, and she wouldn't do anything of the sorts to hurt them. Yotsuba and Futaro took the bus to catch up with Itsuki and Miku, Yotsuba feeling terribly guilty about how reckless she was despite it not really being her fault. Futaro confessed to her that he always knew Miku loved him, and it's because of that he also knew something was off when Ichika, disguised as Miku, told him about Ichika's feelings and how she is rooting for them. He comments about how it's possible for everyone to be happy, but in reality more often than not one's happiness might end up hurting another, even if it wasn't intended to. And that unfortunately is how reality works for most of the time, and it's one of the episode's major themes. He tells Yotsuba sooner or later a choice will have to be made and something will have to be sacrificed in order to obtain the other, which is again a really painful truth of reality. Moving on, Nino confirmed my suspicions as well that they are being targeted by a sneak photographer, and you can even tell throughout the episode since they arrived at Kyoto by hearing a sort of snapshot sound effect, and only Nino initially notices. And whoever it is really bold to even stalk and take shots of them right near their room. Miku called Nino upon hearing screams, and simultaneously Ichika ran into Futaro elsewhere. Respectively, Nino had something to say to Miku and Ichika to Futaro the next day. It then cuts to the next day at the temple with Itsuki being pushy to Futaro, with even requesting a photo to sort of mirror the one with his younger self and Rena. Meanwhile, in their room, Nino attempts to make Miku snap out of her depressing state, albeit aggressively, and Miku understandably breaks down, doubting herself, questioning if she's even worthy of Futaro in the first place. And the final scene cuts to Itsuki contemplating about how she missed her chance with Futaro and flat out telling Yotsuba to tell Futaro that it was in fact her, Yotsuba, in the photo 6 years ago. Now, about the Rena mystery, it turns out my theory was completely wrong in last week's review, but I do have a new theory. While it is now confirmed that Yotsuba is the girl in the photo, I still think she isn't Rena, the person who approached Futaro in episode 2 and 3. I base this on how Rena acts quite mature, which isn't really Yotsuba's strong suit, even under a disguise. Earlier in the episode, Yotsuba seemed confused when Futaro mentioned Rena. In the last episode, Itsuki was in possession of the photo and the props for Rena's disguise, and she seems awfully knowledgeable about the whole situation. I'm not considering Rena to be Miku, Nino, nor Ichika due to how the story does not really involve them much when it comes to this. Lastly, I'm just wondering if Itsuki knows it was Yotsuba in the photo because she recognizes her, or if Yotsuba told her when they were younger, but it would be weird if she did not tell the others too, considering their close bond, so I guess we'll see later on. But I'm considering the former here to be more plausible. So yeah, there was a lot to absorb with this episode, and I'm very curious to see how they stick the landing with this mess in the finale next week. So thank you guys for watching this review, and feel free to leave your comments about what you think of the episode. Have a good day and take care.